The right to housing is timely and critical. The ever-changing question of what constitutes a home is today more than ever at the forefront of the social, political, economic and environmental battlefield that architecture and urbanism are constantly confronted with. Critical issues of inequality, inclusion, environmental concerns, a raging pandemic, and the continuous displacement of people are all soundly portrayed and expressed within our domestic spaces. Tall volumes plugged within canonical parcel subdivisions, growing vertically in a tight fashion similar to the city's grid. In this landscape of plugins, is there room for personal appropriation, expansion, alteration? To what extent the buildings become a mass instead of individual entities? How does density reproduce social life?
Within the KatOikia program, the communicative and service responsibilities of buildings will no longer be seen as a process of cramming residents to rigidly designed structures, orchestrated mainly by their commitment to abstract form, space, and structure. Instead, the priorities will shift to informational and contextual associations, more related to a new level of interactive dialogue. This is transference from physical to mental. Is consistent with the information revolution, especially applicable in a post-industrial pandemic society, and it also opens up architecture to a range of ideas and options that have been insufficiently explored for too long.
The content is conceptually organized in a non-linear fashion, following concepts of indeterminacy, ideas of open systems, and the incomplete, unfinished nature of our urban experiences, places, and imaginations. The work is presented as fragments that shape an unpredictable narrative, not a unified thesis, rather a series of antitheses. Marcel Duchamp's exquisite corpse and the notion of the Kant sans are borrowed here to generate and orchestrate an unpredictable collage of thoughts, provocations, and spatial moments. The notion of the incomplete is examined not only as to its aesthetic qualities, rather its socio-political aspects. The works in this volume address the need to re-examine the osmosis between the private and the public domains in an urban block as a successful recipe for producing vivid cities that are resistant to social, economic, and racial segregation. Home is increasingly becoming a space to contain diverse aspects of life, such as working, socializing, entertaining, emphasizing thus the need for increased flexibility, adaptability, and diversity. Systems, networks, information, and transient ways of living all collide together to inhabitation scenarios that by nature cannot conform to the well-engineered contemporary vertical developments. All the possibility that exists through the online platforms is silenced within the smart containers that hold our domestic lives. Our ways of living are beyond smart to fit the smart. Together with an analysis of building codes and regulations, land ownership and its relation to housing and the public sphere, KatOikia's works are concerned with the air circulating above the land, the energy coursing through it, and the earth below it, all in relation to the lives lived within it. What are the processes by which existing buildings are appropriated in experimental ways within the space of academic education? How could design speculations contribute to the furthering of our discipline? Is the hunt to relate academia to practice and vice versa an important one that's worth pursuing further?
With housing thoroughly commodified within an increasingly speculative real estate market, the housing question remains unsolved. Unless we change the mode of production and decommodify housing from top to bottom, it seems, there can be no way to dissipate the housing crises or strategically reimagine our housing system.
The aim is not only to unveil the relationship between the legal frames and housing landscape, but also to envision alternative models of inclusion and accessibility.
In offering a new paradigm which prioritizes community over economy, and in advocating for zoning and policy change, there's potential for opening the door to novel domesticities stifled by current laws.
Participatory Shift's intervention constitutes a home, a meaningful container giving its inhabitants a permeable and dynamic space to configure. The concept blurs barriers and thresholds between public and private.
A large-scale project can demonstrate further individuation in the combination of different housing types and morphologies. With its silent spatiality and tactile materiality, can introduce meaning and value to the human experience by infusing nature and community to each inhabitant's daily life.
Interactive Air proposal rethinks the current status of air rights distribution. It breaks the single, totalizing skyscraper into a cascading landscape of interlocking live-work units with resulting void-solid formal relations.
The opportunity to redefine radical domesticities for today and the future lives at the place where regulations, cities, policy, and density meet light and air, adaptability and sustainability, equity and justice.
In the last century, the hierarchy within vertical towers has become desirable as it constitutes economic achievement. This phenomenon has caused a major fissure between humanity and its intrinsic relationship to nature. Symbiosity is an urban fabula intended to address these issues. It imagines a future of humanity reconnecting with nature and challenges our current perception of it.
The lack of environmental gradients follows along with the disconnect of the social life of the street level to the inside. Well-crafted lobbies become the mediators between public life and the private sphere, acting as aesthetically luring gentle segregators.
The proposal investigates housing through the critical lens of displacement and refugee and creates a hypothesis of a guest-host symbiotic community. By retrofitting existing buildings with plug-in modular units that expand and compress based on real-time data and information processing, new infrastructure is created.
Terms such as data, visualization, informatics, detailization are emerging in the design fields. Information can produce an infinite output of representations that visually transmit nuanced messages.
The growing motivation is one of the most promising signs of hope in the development of a consensus philosophy of the environment. If successful, it will confirm anthropologist Margaret Mead's optimistic observation: never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has.